Welcome to Smash Management, which was born to help you smash through barriers to working as a manager, especially if you are not trained in management. If you are an accidental or a new manager, this is for you. I'm a lecturer in management and business, as well as a learning and development specialist who struggled from the very beginning with life at work. No one in my family was a professional, had a degree, or told me anything about the real world of work and the challenges of the workplace. This channel is about real situations and challenges that we face at work as a manager. I draw on many areas of thought and a wide range of authors, philosophies and books. Today, we take a short journey into feedback theories. There will be another video with a deeper dive into this important subject. Most people go through life reacting without really understanding why. Something triggers you inside. If you grew up in a difficult or unstable environment, you didn't just experience events, you adapted to them. In this instance, you may have become highly aware of others, cautious in how you speak, reluctant to create conflict or to say your piece, or overly responsible. You may be the polar opposite of these, but none of these are faults. They're more like patterns. And in management thinking, behavior is learned, and anything learned can be examined and adjusted. So instead of judging yourself, think of speaking and reacting from an optional space in time. Even if things at work seem rushed or like they require an immediate response, give yourself time to react. And remember, you have options. Option 1, continue reacting automatically, and then you will get the same results. Option 2, pause, observe, and look at what's happening. Option 3, choose a different response altogether, perhaps, even if it feels unfamiliar. That's the starting point. You are not trying to become someone else. You are learning to understand how you operate and then making more deliberate choices. This empowers you, and that's where stability begins. In part 1, we will look at a small selection of feedback theories. Most feedback fails before it even starts because of emotion and the delivery of the feedback. Feedback is one of the most powerful influences in learning, but in practice, if it's delivered poorly, it has the opposite effect. So the question is not just what to say, but how it is received. So from this perspective, you can see that you have to take into consideration the reaction of the recipient. Some people feel attacked, and if they feel attacked, they stop listening, even if you're right. People think feedback is just about words, but psychology shows it's also about perception. People, words, perception. If you can recall it in this way, this will help you remind yourself that feedback is about perception. So let's have a quick look at some helpful ideas which have been developed over time on the psychology or the emotional response to feedback. So we have a look at an insight that feedback triggers identity and not logic. So based on behavioral psychology, the brain reacts before it reflects. So you decipher a threat, defensive pressure builds up, and then inside you there's resistance, or inside the other person. So what we're aiming to do when we give feedback is to avoid creating resistance, because we would like the recipient to be open to our feedback. So each session has a resource list which you can download, and if you are studying management, these sessions will add value and support you in understanding the application of management concepts at work in different situations. The information also incorporates ideas around self-management and self-development, which will be interwoven into the next videos as we go along. So let's have a look at this business principle in part 2. So, what does management theory say about feedback? Well, in management theory, any of the books will state that feedback has to be clear, it has to be specific, and it has to be behavior focused. That is factual. You've seen it happen, you know about it, you have evidence for it, and definitely not personality based. So even if you do not like the person, or you're not fond of the person you're speaking to, as a manager, it's your duty to be clear, specific, behavior focused, and factual. In Adlerian psychology, it suggests that people are driven by a need to belong, and that much of our behavior comes from early experiences of feeling included or excluded. In simple terms, Adler believed people are not fixed by their past, but shaped by how they interpret it. So instead of asking, what's wrong with this person, Adler would ask, what is this behavior trying to achieve? Interestingly, in a work context, this helps us understand that behavior often has a purpose, even if it seems difficult. And the key idea is this: people change best through encouragement and not criticism alone. As we saw in our last session, the management theorist Mayo claimed that people work better when they feel valued. So feedback should be given to instill a sense of feeling valued by the recipient of that feedback. You can use sentences such as, I have noticed how resilient you've been during the challenges presented by, and then state the challenges, and we value that at our company. For a downloadable list of sentences to help you create the right environment for feedback, see the link in the description below. Looking at Buddhism now, it is not a belief system in the traditional sense. It is a practical philosophy about how the mind works. So at its core, Buddhism teaches that much of human suffering comes from attachment to thoughts, to outcomes, and expectations. One of the key ideas is awareness, learning to observe your thoughts without immediately reacting to them, or indeed someone else's thoughts. In everyday life and work, this means creating a small space between what happens and how you respond. That space is where better decisions are made. So instead of reacting automatically, you pause, you notice what is happening, and then you choose your response more consciously. The aim is not to improve or remove emotion, but to reduce reactivity. So thinking becomes your armor, it becomes clearer and more stable. One of the key ideas is awareness, as we have heard, learning to observe your thoughts without immediately reacting to them. So in everyday life, it means creating a small space between what actually happened and how you're going to respond to what happened. That is how better decisions are made. If you react emotionally, feedback becomes conflict. If you stay aware in that space, feedback can then become guidance. In part 3, this is where we will apply what we have learned in an activity. Take a moment to reflect and attempt to discuss a scenario here. So imagine that you are in a leadership position and you must come to a decision on which possible feedback action to take. Later in this course, we will come back to the same scenario, and after you've reflected, you may have a different opinion, having learned more about management. So we're saying here that we're not actually correcting the person, we're correcting the behavior. So instead of saying you're careless, you will say this task was not completed as agreed. Totally different ways of getting a similar message across, but it corrects the behavior and not the person. Adlerian closing principle. Encouragement improves behavior more than criticism alone. So people change faster when they feel capable or enabled to improve and not ashamed. So final points here. Feedback is often misunderstood. Managers think it's only about correcting behavior, but it's also about focusing on behavior. Psychology shows it is about how the message is also received. If someone feels judged, generally they stop listening. Adlerian thinking suggests behavior is tied to belonging, so if feedback feels like a rejection, it won't work either. The goal is not control. The goal is understanding and clarity. So if we look at point 3 here, feedback is a skill. Prepare for it with the respect that it deserves, because it can have a lasting consequence in the workplace. The goal is not control, it is understanding and clarity. Each session will have some academic resources which will show you where the information came from, and if you would like to read more on management, see these reference lists below. I have started this channel, Smash Management, which was born out of a dream to help and support you whether you are a new manager, an accidental manager, or a challenge manager. Thank you for listening and for your time. Please like and comment to encourage me to create more useful material and videos to help you work well at work.